Hello and welcome to a new series here on the Roast Tires channel. Welcome to Craziest Engine Swaps. Today's episode will be the pilot episode, if you would say, of the series, which is the LS. So before we get started with the LS swaps, we should get into the history of the LS itself. So we're going to go to this Wikipedia article I've pulled up here. I'm not going to show it on screen, but I'm going to just talk about the history of the LS, according to Wikipedia at least. And then we'll hop over in the small webcam. I'll go through some of the craziest swaps and some of the most popular cars that get swapped. So let's head on over to Wikipedia so I can read everything out. The LS-based GM small block engine is the primary V8 used in General Motors' line of rear-wheel drive cars and trucks. It was introduced in January 1995 and is a clean sheet design with only rod bearings, lifters, and bore spacing in common with the long-standing small block, the 350 small block, that preceded it. LS variations use cast iron, while performance editions are all aluminum with cast iron cylinder liners. The LS was manufactured in 3 generations, 3, 4, and 5, with preceding generations 1 and 2 having been based on the small block from originally designed in 55. So GM recycled the LT designation in 2014, which is the use on the Stingray, in case you didn't know, and the C7. Several versions of the LS were used in the Corvette, beginning with the LS1 in 97 through the LS9 in 2013. Variations of the LT version of the GM small block have been used since. So, the LT1, LT4, I believe the LT5s, and the ZR1 is one of those two. But the configuration is overhead valve. It's a pushrod motor. A lot of American car companies seem to stick to these pushrod motors. Dodge does it with their Hemi line, and of course the Magnum line prior to it in the 90s were all overhead valve V8s. Ford was the only, I believe so far, the only company in America that has made the switch to a dual overhead cam V8 due to the fact that Ford wanted to be different. Granted, Ford did have their own overhead valve, the Windsor line, throughout the 60s and the mid-90s when it was switched over to the modular dual overhead cam engines, unless you were the Explorer. Who stuck with the 5.0 Windsor until 2001. Okay, so now we're on the Cars Guide article, and we'll be going through these 5 cars. These are the top 5 LS engine swap cars. So, we're going to start off. The Mazda RX-7 FD is a very popular one due to the fact that rotaries have reliability issues, understandably. They're a very peculiar designed engine, and so a lot of people who have RX-7s, or RX-8s even, when they blow up, they look for a replacement that isn't a rotary because they don't want to deal with the same reliability issues that a lot of people have with rotaries. Now, I'm not saying that RX-7s, RX-8s are bad cars. I love the rotary engine. I think they're amazing. But, you gotta admit, they have reliability issues and they like to flood. So, a lot of people who have to replace a motor, blow an apex seal, or flood the motor too much, they want to buy a LS platform. And the RX-7 is by far one of the most popular cars out there to do it on. As much as I don't like the idea of the swap, because the rotary is just such a unique engine, I can't really blame people for doing it. And LS RX-7s have been featured on my channel a few times in Caffeine and Octane videos, so you can go back to that series and go find a few appearances. So there's number 5 on the list, which is the RX-7. The Commodore VC. Now I don't know what these are because, as you all know, in the States we don't get Holdens here. So I've never seen one of these before. This is the first time I've ever seen a Commodore VC. But apparently this is a very popular LS swapped car. The Ford Falcon. Now this is a shocker to me, and this is something that I don't say a lot, but Fords with Chevy motors or Chevys with Dodge motors or vice versa for any of the other 3 of the American companies, that bothers me. But again, the LS is a great engine, so I can't really blame people for putting it into a Falcon. It even says in the first line, Blue Oval fans will be pleased with this build. I'm not. The E30 M3. Now this one's actually a shocker to me because I thought a lot of European purists would be like, oh, we would never put an American engine in our BMWs. But apparently I've been proven wrong. Now I really like the E30 as is with its straight 6 motor. But, it's just a timeless look of the car. It's just a beautiful car. But the LS, does make it have a bit more of a punch. So again, can't blame anyone. Even though I really prefer a straight 6 in BMW, unless it was the BMW C92 V8. And the number 1 is the Civic. How does this work? How do you even get a LS in a Civic? We're gonna have to go through these pictures, dude. And they even got it to mount perfect, and it's a 454 LSX. That's ginormous. I didn't actually go through the LSX on the article where I was talking about the history. The LSX is basically just a mismatch, like just a mashup of every LS. LSXs, there are no similar LSXs. This thing's on a shot in Gnostic. My gosh, this thing's probably dangerous. I hope it's still not front-wheel drive. But apparently that's number one. An honorable mention is the Tesla Model S. So that's interesting. But that's the Cars Guide article. We're going to move over to the craziest cars that have been LS swapped on the internet. Okay, so now we're on Google Images, looking at the craziest cars that have been LS swapped. So, now, not all of these are LS swaps. As you see, this Ford Ka right here isn't LS swapped. But we're going to be going through these images, just trying to find the craziest cars that have been LS swapped. We've already got a pretty good set list on screen here. We have a Ferrari 360 with an LS in it, and that's crazy to me. Like, what? Like, I thought the Ferrari motor was perfect, but, I mean, that's interesting. So, you see that going down the road, you're going to hear it, and you're going to be like, what in the world happened to that Ferrari? Another one that I've seen that is actually, I've always thought has been like just really insane, is the LS and the 911 concept. I'm like, how does that even work? Because the 911 motors, range from like 3 point something liters to 4 liters. I didn't think there'd be enough space to fit a 5.3 or a 5.7 or a 6.0 or something like that into one of these things, and it just looks insane. I mean, just look, like the airbox just like right where the trunk would close. And on a lot of modern 911s, you can't even see the motor from the inside, so that's just crazy to me. Then we have the Civic again. Now this one is actually not even an LS swap. I don't know why that's here. We also have this. This is actually an article from Car Throttle. Of course, you should never drop an LS V8 into. And I've heard of the LS Supras, but I've never seen one. We also have another 911 with an LS in it. That's another. Now this one's the older body style, so it's the one that's a little bit more deadly. So that one's a little scary to me. Is that a freaking like Ford Escort or a Ford Sierra or something like that with an LS in it? Now these I won't say is crazy, because this is another Chevy platform. Now it's very popular for people like Silverados or with old Impalas like this to throw LSs in them and be like, oh look, we made it even better. So I don't really call that crazy. I think that's more of an improvement than a crazy swap. Now this one isn't even an LS, but it still bewilders me. Now this one is an LS swap to Prius. Now, I have said it before how much I hate the Prius and how much I wish they didn't exist. But, my gosh, now that's an improvement right there, spending an LS on one of those bad boys. A much bigger improvement. So, we've got another one here. I believe this is... I can't tell what kind of car it is, but it does look really clean. I can give that. That's a Viper motor and a Saab. What? As for the LS, it looks like we really are running out of options here. Is that? Oh, gosh. It's a LS swap, or FC, apparently. Now this one, that Dude Who Blue's video on this car was absolutely insane, and Hayden absolutely hates this car, not because of how it looks, and it looks great, but that LS1 power plant bothers Hayden to death. And I honestly can't blame Hayden now. I find this to be one of the craziest swaps out there for an LS, is an S2000, because S2000s are notoriously already pretty darn dangerous stock. I mean, riding on Hayden's, he's not lost control, but at the back end has tried to kill him at least once or twice on just normal driving. So I can only imagine, you're running 400 plus horsepower through an LS, if it's even mildly modified, in a car that weighs 2,000 pounds with a stock engine in it. So that's scary to me. That's just wow. But I gotta give him props to hardtop. I do like the hardtop on that. Okay, so here's the Model S again. Now this one I find is another one of the craziest ones. I would put this towards the top of craziest LS swaps, because it's a Tesla. It's an electric car going to a gas engine. Like, it just blows my mind that this is even remotely possible, that you could fit an LS. I mean, granted, it looks like there's been a lot of chassis work to work that in there, but that's pretty darn crazy. Now we also have what it looks like a Coyote motor in a Porsche Cayman, which is interesting. We'll have to cover that if we ever do a Coyote Swap episode. But I don't think Coyote Swaps are that popular yet, so. But it looks like that wraps up the LSs. So, I guess this is where we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is going to be a new series that I do every week, that I can at least. I want you guys to suggest next episode in the comments below. What engine do you want me to cover next week? I'm thinking 2JZ, but if you guys have a different idea, we can go there. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.